Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. September will see a climate conference catering to some of the region's youngest advocates and leaders as well as influencers. This non-profit initiative is led by the Journal of CESaRE, Caribbean Environmental Sciences and Renewable Energy in partnership with the Cropper Foundation. Now, Chief Executive Officer and Trustee of the Cropper Foundation, Omar Mohammed, and Dr. Masao Ashtine, Conference Convener and a Journal of CESaRE, they join us now. Welcome, gentlemen. I want to thank you for making the time. I want to ask you, though, Mr. Mohammed, what gap or challenge does this initiative address?
Well, we hope that it addresses quite a few gaps that exist right now in the climate action space in the Caribbean. Because as you know, the conference is being directed to the Gen Z group of young activists. And those Gen Zs are persons who are generally under 25, so persons born sort of after 1995. So those are the persons who are now, leaving secondary school, going into university, and who are growing up for the first time in a world that is sort of beset by this climate crisis. They've known nothing except, hotter temperatures, stark headlines. So the conference is really creating a space where these young activists who are standing up for what they think is, a pretty scary future. This is creating a space for them to do a couple of things, learn from one another, tell their own stories, and also learn from persons who've tried to kind of tread that path before and who have lessons to share with these young activists. So it's really helping create and curate a space that hopefully will stimulate them into, bigger and better forms of activism around climate change.
All right, thank you so much for that. And Dr. Ashtine, let me bring you in because there is a quote that I saw attributed to you. I wouldn't do it right now, but let me just ask the question, why Gen Z?
All right. Well, it's their future, right? It's our future as well. But I think what we've been hearing from those that have been involved, because we wanted to make sure that this conference was one that was youth-owned, youth-derived, youth-planned, all of the above. So we had a youth committee, and one thing that was clear from them is that they often felt like they didn't necessarily have the spaces in a lot of these conferences on the international stage. Very often they've placed in the last session of the last day, sort of like, thank you for coming along. We'd love to hear your opinion, but what is the follow-on afterwards? So we wanted to make sure that it was a space where they felt ownership in the process. And we just felt like the Gen Z community, especially the activist community, are doing a lot of amazing work in the Caribbean and they don't get enough shine. And we just felt like the spotlight needed to be on them a bit more, and hence this conference.
And I'll ask the question as well, because we recently spoke with some individuals about the Island Innovation ambassadors and what it is they're doing. And we asked the question, is it a matter of putting spotlight solely on fabulous ideas that Gen Zs and persons around that generation may have, or is it a matter of trying to almost like game the system so that there's this combination, there's this engagement of older and younger, so people are saying, as opposed to, yeah man, the idea sounds as though it might be good, but we'll take you on when you're a little longer in the tooth and possibly temperatures are higher. As opposed to there's this person who has the look that they're looking for, someone who's a little older. So where is their middle ground for that, Dr. Ashtine?
I think in all reality, the reason why we really push for the Gen Z community and sort of complementing the other work that's being done in Caribbean by a multitude of organizations is that we wanted to sort of add the credibility to their activism. So very often we'll get questions, we hear just stop oil, or we hear 100% renewable energy in Jamaica, but why? And, often when they're confronted with these questions, it's, you don't always have to get a climate degree in order to understand why it is we need to shift to renewable energy, or is 100% renewable energy even any good, and why there may be problems with that. So I think what we're trying to do is really equip them with the necessary sort of communication tools and skill sets and the confidence meeting these experts so that older generation and younger, it doesn't have to be a sort of divide there, to really say that there's an intimate setting in these workshops that we're having in the conference, to feel like they're gaining that sort of diffusion of ideas in a informal setting that they don't usually get. That is more or less the crux of it. We want to make sure that there's capacity building amongst the Gen Z, so that when they do go in the field and they do go into these other sort of fora to really sort of activate what they've learned, they feel like they have a good bit of skills in their armory to take that challenge on.
And with that in mind, I want to ask you, Mr. Mohammed, ideal cohort, who are you looking to be a part of this conference?
So we have two main sections to each day of the conference, which, as a reminder, runs from the 8th to the 10th of September. And the conference is broken up into two sections. So we have a morning section that's going to be plenary. So it's going to be, presentations, some panel discussions, and those are going to be streamed live across a multitude of different platforms. So that's really for any Gen Z person, or actually anyone interested in really hearing about the types of activism that Gen Z groups are taking on, as well as sort of larger issues around climate change and climate action in the Caribbean. So the morning sessions are public, and you'll be able to see that on any social media platform that you're on, if you're being honest. The afternoon sessions are closed sessions that you have the option to indicate your interest in when you do the original registration. So those groups are meant to be very small, intimate sessions where small groups of activists, Gen Z activists, are able to have, very direct conversations with facilitators and persons who are working in the space. So the cohort of activists that are going to be in the afternoon sessions are persons who can demonstrate through nothing onerous a couple of questions about what they currently do in their activism, and some deeper questions on what are their expectations for a conference such as this, and how it would actually impact on the work that they want to do. So we have two very distinct sections, and we hope that each section will sort of have its intended purpose of, one, sort of spreading this wider message to the masses, including Gen Z, but also the afternoon sessions, which will really be helping to drive action in a group of activists who are already committed to doing the work.
And with that, we take a short break. We are returning. We're speaking about the Caribbean Generation Gen Z Climate Conference. We're doing so with conference convener and the co-founder of the Journal of CESaRE, Dr. Masao Ashtine. We're also speaking with the CEO and trustee of the Cropper Foundation, Omar Mohammed. Stay with us. We return with more. Thank you for staying with us. Welcome back. We are speaking about the Gen Z conference with Dr. Masao Ashtine. We're also speaking with Omar Mohammed. Now, Dr. Ashtine, the youth-owned, youth-planned, youth-derived, are there going to be any flies on the wall who are a little older? How are you going to say, okay, well, is the key performance indicators that we want coming out of it, things are happening? And I do take the point that was just made by Mr. Mohammed, because sometimes power is created in with togetherness, but also a bit of silence. But how do you go about managing it?
Flies on the wall, okay. We have no problem with that. I think most of the speakers are going to be those older flies on the wall, and that's exactly what we want. We want to impart knowledge with people who have had that experience, and that's not to discount that they are exceptional speakers who are Gen Z as well and have that experience well beyond their years as well. We to sort of expand on what Omar was saying, is we are capping the numbers for a reason. This is not a numbers game. This is not 10,000 people have come to our conference. Yes, we've achieved, we have success, we like that. It's about how do we actually get them in an intimate setting where we have breakout rooms of, sometimes we're trying to limit it to only 15 people. to say, let's have a conversation with these people that you regard as experts. We know you regard them as experts. These people have thousands of followers on LinkedIn and their social media profile, etc. So you get to have these one-on-one questions or these sort of corridor moments where you would have had it in person, where you bounce up somebody in the corridor and you can really just get to understand their journey, how they became so sort of respected in their fields. So to answer your question, flies on the wall are definitely okay, but we also want to make sure that the people who are in the room, there's tangible impact afterwards. We're looking at how we can have incubation frameworks afterwards to take their realities, see if we can get funding to pair that together to turn those into sort of credible projects moving forward. So again, we're not trying to just talk at the Gen Z. We're trying to make sure that even people who are the flies on the wall and in the conference can learn. We just had a pre-event where I was sitting down there as a fly on the wall with the admin, listening to these three amazing women speak. And I can tell you that I learned a lot. So it's not just we are talking at them. We really want to make sure it's a process where we can understand what they're going through and how better to facilitate, learn from them, and sort of impart that knowledge.
And I really like the fact that there seems as though there's this energy of hands holding hands, all hands on deck for common cause. But let me know, please, Mr. Mohammed, who are some of the other players involved, some of the other partners helping to support this, drive this forward?
Well, we have quite a lot of partners. We really try to make this a collaborative exercise. So, of course, you have the journal, you have Cropper Foundation, we have people coming in from the Alliance of Small Island States, Climate Conscious, Climate Analytics. We have a wide diversity of NGO partners, sort of regional organizational partners. We have some donor development partners like Open Society Foundation, the Inter-American Development Bank and Caribbean Natural Resources Institute, who provided some financial support for the execution of the project. So we have a wide cross-section of partners that we brought together, and they've all been engaged in a number of different ways. Some have helped us plan, some are gonna act as moderators and facilitators on the day, some are sharing the conference with their networks. So it's really, like you said, it's a all hands on deck kind of situation. And we'll be sure to share that full sort of graphic image of all of the partner logos before the conference, at the conference, and after. So you'll be sure to see the full gamut of support that we've had.
And I hear you laughing, Dr. Ashtine, but I remember having a conversation with someone who once said that is lonely living in the future in terms of seeing what can happen and trying to take incremental steps to address it either positively or to mitigate against what may happen. What is the importance of this keynote address believe in your journey that will be given by St. Lucian Dr. Len Ishmael?
Yeah, I mean, she is a force to be reckoned with, and she's one that has a lot of, you really don't need to go through the CV. It speaks for itself. So I think she's really coming into this conference, and she's very excited to come into this conference to just say, look, I started probably right where you are at the age of 16, probably not wondering who was believing in me. It was a very different time, especially for a woman of color on an international stage at that time as well. So it was, how can we then utilize her experience, share it across this keynote session to really let Gen Z activists know, look, there are a lot of the things that you're feeling right now, the imposter syndrome, the loneliness, the pressure to sort of fix your future that other people have just messed up and left you there and say, well done, youth energy, you could go ahead and do it. And I think somebody who has this sort of credibility, who has really pushed the Caribbean in places where probably she and all at that age had zero idea would ever become. She probably didn't even know this was going to be an experience that she was in for. And it's just realizing that you can live in the now. You don't have to live in the future. Day by day, recognizing that your journey is going to unfold through many different avenues that you probably didn't even plan for. I have a PhD from Cambridge in climate stuff. Did I know I was going that way? Not at all. I thought I was going to be a marine biologist when I was much younger. So, it's all recognizing that you don't have to take the sort of future on your shoulder. There are a lot of people alongside with you, and realizing that you can sort of, bring a lot of friends with you that possibly silent hurting as well, and realize that there's a lot of strength in that communication and sort of community gathering.
I really like the fact that it seems as though there is a functional element to this. Okay, this will help to feed into this. This will help to influence this sort of policy that we're going. And I want to ask specifically on the side of the Cropper Foundation, is there feedback that you'll be taking from the conference to add to your data sets, as well as how you have further outreach activities, basically targeting, speaking to and speaking with Gen Z?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is our sort of testing ground. We really want to try to make this something that is ongoing. So we've already sort of, been explaining this to some of our partners, bear with us. We're trying this thing out. We could have gone for the big splashy, like Masao said, 500, 600, 1,000 people watching live stream, but we've decided to do the much harder thing of planning multiple parallel breakout rooms with parallel moderators and smaller groups, and because we were really interested in getting down to helping people connect to one another and help them sort of have tangible positive increases in their activism. So there are going to be follow-up activities, like Masao said, including some form of incubation around project ideas, but not just project ideas, but also movement building ideas. We're going to be encouraging people to meet up in person, because of course this is a virtual conference, but it's going to be people from around the Caribbean. So we're going to encourage people to meet up, again, build community, because as Masao said, we just had a pre-conference activity on Saturday with three young women who are, incredible award-winning activists. And they all said that one of the most important things for them is building a community of activists around them. So we're hoping that we help support that. And as for the Cropper Foundation, we do have a program called Caribou, the Caribou Environmental News Network. So we do have right now a cohort of high school environmental journalists who are being trained. And their first job would be to cover the conference and create stories for that particular generational cohort, which will then be shared and published on Caribou. So it is feeding directly into our own work, as it will be for CESaRE. And of course, the learnings that are coming out of it will feed into not just successive iterations of the conference itself, but movements that are going to come out of it, projects that are going to come out of it. So it's going to be multiple layers of subsequent engagements.
All right, so you spoke about Caribou, so I think Dr. Masao gets the opportunity in this last minute to talk a little bit about CESaRE, the journal as well, in addition to just wrapping up the conversation. Thank you.
Sorry, yeah, so as Omar said, it's really about how we sort of, I think that's sort of the origin of CESaRE. There's a lot of work going on in the Caribbean. We don't shout loud enough about it. We are not proud enough about it, unfortunately. And I think there are a lot of brilliant minds that we need to bring to the forefront. We don't have to look to foreign. And I think that's what we're really trying to push synergy-wise with the Cropper Foundation and CESaRE, to really make sure that there's tangible impact. Like Omar said, I know we keep saying tangible impact a lot, but like Omar said, it is a lot more work to have these sessions broken into breakout rooms with smaller sort of attendee numbers, and that's you're held accountable a lot more, right? Because you have a lot less people who are looking for a lot more. So we at CESaRE are really trying to make sure that there's this sort of, our whole premise as an organization is how you creatively send that knowledge from generation to generation, from academic sources into the general public. How do you bring industry, academia, the public, youth, older generations together for a common cause? And how do we not break those silos, those echo chambers? How do we make sure that we're not duplicating efforts? And so all of that has really gone into this conference to make sure that we are delivering something that we feel we can really be proud to stand behind.
And we want to thank you for taking the time. We want to thank you for doing the work. Reminding you, it is from September 8 to 10. And for registration information, you can follow the Journal of CESaRE and the Cropper Foundation on all social media platforms, or email inquiries at CESaREjournal.org or outreach@thecropperfoundation.org. Thank you very much, Dr. Masao Ashtine. Thank you very much, Omar Mohammed. And on behalf of our entire news team, I'm Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.